Today's guest on the podcast is Erin Carlson. She's the author of the new book, Queen Meryl, as in Meryl Streep. That's right. It is a book about the amazing Meryl Streep and all her roles and all of her glory. But Erin and I had a great conversation about writing, about venturing into a novel, wedding planning, and the art of hustle. We talk about movies that Meryl Streep is in, from The Devil Wears Prada to Bridges of Madison County, and one of my favorites, the probably lesser known One True Thing. But we have a great time just chatting about Meryl Streep, about writing, and whatever's coming next. So I hope you all follow Erin Carlson. She's Erin Lee Carlson on Instagram, and her new book, Queen Meryl, is sure to be a bestseller. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Same 24 Hours podcast with Meredith Atwood. We all have the same 24 hours each day, and it's what we do with those hours that makes all the difference between our health, happiness, and success.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Same 24 Hours podcast. I'm your host, Meredith Atwood. Today's guest, Erin Carlson. Hello.
Hi, Meredith.
How are you?
I'm good. Very caffeinated.
Me too. I'm sitting here like, gosh.
How many cups of coffee do you drink every morning?
Okay, so I don't even think mine can be called cups because I have the giant 32 stainless steel tumbler that I filled with iced coffee, ice, and coconut milk, and I'm on my third. So that's like, I don't know, 70 ounces of coffee.
Oh man, that'll fuel you throughout the day.
I'm ready
and that's
to go.
A great combination. Coconut. I need to incorporate that in my morning routine.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. But I have been going, this is like hour 7, and I promised my daughter I'd take her to a concert tonight. So I'm just going to keep going, you know?
Yeah.
Can't stop now.
Can't stop.
I'm super excited to talk to you so we have the same publisher, which is how we came across each other, and your new book that's coming out is about Meryl Streep, who's like my favorite person on the planet. So there's that. But then we got a good click going. I just think like you're really cool, and I think that my audience is going to just adore you. So there's that.
Well, thank you so much.
The two caffeinated people.
Likewise.
Yes. So writing, how did you get started writing? Like, did you love to write as a kid? Or were you going to be a doctor and made an about face? Like, how did you become a writer?
Well, I have always just had this urge to express myself. And, in high school, I would write down all my feelings in my diary. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should join the student newspaper. And then I was like, wait, you can get paid for writing. Maybe I should become a journalist.
Right.
So I went to the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, and I majored in journalism, and I wasn't ready to become an adult yet. So I went to graduate school at Northwestern for magazine publishing, which was a year program. And then I was going to move to Chicago and, maybe one day work at the Chicago Tribune and just work my way up to becoming a top journalist in Chicago.
A very serious writer, right?
A very serious writer.
Right.
And I was going to cover crime and city politics.
And you were going to have a little notebook that you had in your pocket. Yeah.
I was going to be like Mary Tyler Moore.
Right.
And
me too.
Yeah. That was my ideal. And then at Northwestern, I just discovered I am obsessed with pop culture and television, movies, and maybe there was another route for me. So just through professors, I got hooked up with the editor of TV Guide, who was an alum, the alum networks. So I got a job at TV Guide right out of grad school and moved to New York City, which is a very difficult, challenging, wonderful place to live in your 20s.
Right.
Where you can make a lot of mistakes, but also learn a lot too. And meet incredible people and have these incredible rarefied experiences that I didn't get growing up in the far western suburbs of Chicago, which I love, but I got another experience. And I then started writing for the Associated Press on the arts and entertainment desk. So I was covering movie premieres, did a bunch of celebrity interviews, which some were legendary and some were terrible. So I learned how to have no shame, basically.
And did you learn how to not get your feelings hurt early?
Well, it's funny. I am still extremely sensitive, but I was even more so growing up, and also extremely shy and socially anxious. Uh-huh. So it doesn't make sense how I would push myself out of my comfort zone over and over again, even though I was just dying inside. I'm kind of a massive introvert. I unwind by being alone. I enjoy solitude, and I get shy around people. I was even a little nervous before our podcast.
I'm nervous about my own podcast. I could be sitting here talking to myself and I'm like, oh no, I get it. It's like we have parallel lives. Yeah, for sure.
There's this whole mantra going around. I think it's been around for a while. Do something every day that scares you.
Right.
That's been my life mantra.
You're like, I wake up and talk to people every day.
Right. But that's the reason for, I think, whatever success I have is because I will make myself do something that I'm nervous to do.
So when you think about doing something that terrifies you, do you have to go through the process of saying, okay, what's the worst that can happen? Or do you just say, this is going to scare me and I'm just going to do it?
Both. I think that, dealing with social anxiety and, all of the mechanisms I've learned to cope with it, because it doesn't go away. I know that, the outcome is going to be a lot better than what I expect. It's like this kind of fatalistic attitude, it's going to turn out terrible. I might as well not do it. But I know rationally that's not true.
Right. And that's interesting you say, I know it's not going to go away, because it doesn't ever go away. It just gets a little bit more routine. You get used to putting yourself out there, but the fear never really goes away.
No, you just learn to manage it. And it's just telling yourself rationally, putting myself out there, it's not going to be, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that could happen is maybe somebody doesn't like you. Maybe they unfollow you on Instagram. Maybe they write something bad about you on Goodreads or something. Mm-hmm. However, those people aren't your friends. Those people don't matter in the long run. So just ignore them and keep doing what you're doing. This is what I tell myself every day, Meredith.
I'm writing it down. I'm like, okay, I'm going to say this. It's so true, though. I mean, it's so true that we have to, and the way I rationalize it is okay, 1 million years ago, and I'm really bad with history, by the way. 1 million years ago, this would be fight or flight, saber-toothed tiger situation. And you're just wondering if these people like you. Put it in perspective. Your fight or flight is not even real.
Right?
But we're still wired to feel that, oh my God, we're going to die.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's that whole survival mentality. But what am I, I'm not running away from a saber-toothed tiger. I'm just deciding whether to promote my book on Instagram. It's still hard for me. Right. And my husband is Erin, he's what would a white man do?
That's so true.
A white man would just be yeah, I'm going to post this with some hashtags. So I've been doing more of that lately. And
instead of Jesus, we're going to ask, what would a white man do in some circumstances?
in some, right. And, they would, a lot of men just don't even think about it. And, I'm just in my head. So my life journey is to continue to push myself to do things that my head isn't telling me to do. How am I explaining this right?
No, totally. Because
my social anxiety.
Yeah, no, and I get it. And it's also really hard, and I think social media culture, to continually put ourselves out there even when we don't feel like it, because that's what I struggle with. I mean, I think my niche is kind of, speaking the truth about myself, and then people relate to it. But sometimes I am hating myself so much, or I'm just in like the doldrums that I'm like, I don't want to tell anyone about this. I want to be mad by myself. And I hate everyone. And, but then I've noticed when I just kind of share that on social media, then I can tell like the people that really do matter to me, and the ones that come to support, or the ones that go, yeah, me too. I've been there. And that kind of renews my spirit. But then when I try too hard, and it's fabricated in some way, or, that's when I get the hate.
Yeah.
Because it's not real.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to not be real. I'm trying real hard.
Oh, but I think if you post anything like that, nobody can tell, because everything you do is real, and it's inspiring.
Well, sometimes I'm trying real hard, and I'm like, really, I just want to tell you all to unfollow me, and I don't want to do this anymore. Because it's hard. It's hard to be real all the time. But I think that's how I my point being, I think I get through social anxiety by just saying, okay, you have to do this because it's true. Right now you feel this way, and it's true. And as long as you're being true to yourself, then everything else is, it doesn't matter.
And exactly. And it's refreshing to follow you and people who are willing to be real on social media. I mean, that's why we follow you, because we know we're going to get the truth and something straightforward.
Right. And something ugly sometimes too.
I mean, right? Yeah. Like, who wants to look at pink walls all the time?
Nobody.
The era of the pink wall is over.
That's right. We are knocking those walls down. Forget it.
Exactly.
So you recently got married.
Yes.
Congratulations, right? Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's a good thing, right?
Yes.
So how was that? I mean, I got married so many decades ago at this point. Like, how was wedding planning and all that?
Wedding planning was, I'm not even going to lie. It felt like a third job, because during the day I'm an editor for a super regional magazine in San Francisco called the Nob Hill Gazette. We cover life and society and culture in this crazy city we call San Francisco. And then, in my off hours, I write books. So my first book, I'll Have What She's Having, told the story of Nora Ephron and her romantic comedies. So behind the scenes of When Harry Met Sally and Sleepless in Seattle, and my personal favorite, You've Got Mail. And then my second book is Queen Meryl, which goes behind the scenes of Meryl's movies, from The Devil Wears Prada to Sophie's Choice. And I had to plan my wedding at the same time I was researching and writing Queen Meryl, and then working my day job.
Right. With that day job, yeah, that's 3 jobs.
It's 3 jobs, and I was like, wait, I'm not getting paid for this third job, the wedding planning. So I felt a little disconnected, because people were talking about TV shows, and I recently caught up on the first season of Big Little Lies, because I wasn't able to watch TV for about a year. Or read other people's books, or, I just didn't have any free time.
Right.
So the wedding was wonderful. I did enjoy the planning that entailed, tastings. Like we flew down to Palm Springs and like did the whole, what is it? The horse and pony show, the dog and
I think it's a dog and pony show, but why?
But why?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know these things. So that was kind of fun. Venue scouting was fun, but yeah, the whole guest list and seating arrangements and different family social dynamics. As a people pleaser, that was less fun for me.
Oh, you do need my book.
It's definitely for me. I know.
Chapter 6, well, it was chapter 11. I don't know where it moved, but there's a whole chapter on people pleasing.
How did you get over that?
Oh my gosh. I'm still not over it, but I know the path forward, I think is what I'll leave it at, because it is really a thing, and it is hard to get to the point where you're like, yeah, I don't care what you need. I need to be sane. And I think when you sacrifice yourself enough, you'll hit a breaking point. And so like with my book, I'm trying to prevent that breaking point from happening in other people the way it happened to me.
Oh, wow.
But
And
it's
like,
hard.
now I'm like interviewing you with it's a terrible habit that I have.
No,
but
it's
like,
fine.
what was
You have to do it. It's the journalist thing in you.
Oh, I wish I could deprogram myself.
No, it's fine. That's called
What was
conversations.
What was your breaking point?
Um,
Or can you talk about it yet?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about it. It just all came at once. I call it in the book, the year that can kiss my ass. And it was the year of 2017. And that year just sucked. Like, I watched everything around me besides my health and family. Like, so the main things that are important in your world, health, family, that stuff stayed intact. So I don't want to act like that fell apart, which is probably the only reason I'm still alive, because I had that grounding. But every single other thing in my life crumbled. My personal relationships with friends I thought were friends, business partners, everything just fell apart. And I was kind of left with this rubble. And I was like, wow, what do I do with this? And then I was like, my life looks like a yard sale. It's like I've got a million things I'm offering people, and I'm selling it all at discount prices at the expense of my soul, which was really expensive. And so I'm like, why am I doing this? Because I want people that don't even like me to like me, and that people I don't even like. I want those people that I don't like to like me. Why am I doing all this? And so it kind of started that inquiry. Like, I had a few people in my life that I absolutely hated. I did not like anything about them, but I cared deeply that they liked me. And I thought, okay, that is nonsense. And so that's where the nonsense inquiry started. I was like, that is crazy. That is nonsense. What if I get rid of that nonsense? What if I get rid of all nonsense? This is the year of no nonsense. Like, that's kind of how it started. And I was like, if I get rid of all the nonsense in my life, the people pleasing, the binge eating, and I have this huge list at the beginning of the book that's just like word vomit of types of nonsense. And we all have different kinds of it. It's like, what if we choose to just live a year with no nonsense? What does that look like? And so that's how it started. And people pleasing was one of them. People pleasing people that didn't even matter to me. Like, what kind of insanity is that?
Yeah. Like, I have that. Yeah. I cannot wait for your book. It is going to reach, I think it's going to reach and help a lot of people. Because a lot of us are afraid to extract toxic people from our lives because they've been in our lives for so long, and yet we seek their approval even though they hurt us.
Right.
And that's difficult, but also, aspirational.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a big, and I don't think it's so much, how do I extract these people, which that's definitely a part of it, but coming to the realization that these interactions with people are actually harming me. And why would I allow something to continue to harm me? And it's because somewhere along the way, someone told us, you are not this, or you are this, or you'll never be this. And we have adopted that belief And then the way we react and act with other people just enforces that toxic belief in that we have about ourselves. And so it's all tied into what core values and core beliefs are we carrying around, that the harm that the other people are doing just provides evidence that you're a piece of shit. It provides evidence that you'll never be worth anything, so we build this whole world around nonsense. And so once you start to strip away some of the external easy stuff, I call it the truth onion. Once you start peeling the crispy stuff and get deep down into the stinky core of it, that's when you're there, and that's when you can really start to change. And so I'm super excited about the book, but I'm also terrified because it is very, you think Instagram is vulnerable? This book, I told my husband, I said, I hope it's a bestseller because then it'll be worth it. But if I told all these stories for just 4,000 people, it's bad. It's bad.
No. But there are 4,000 people who will be like, hell yes, this is what I needed to hear.
I know. I hope. You never know. You're an author. But how's that first book? I mean, how was that process for you? What made you say, I'm a journalist, I'm a writer, I'm now going to write a book?
Okay. So I felt like I was doing the same thing. At this point, I was freelancing for pretty good places, Vanity Fair, Glamour, NBC's website, big brands. But I felt like I wasn't growing as a writer because I was covering the same celebrity news, entertainment news, the same celebrity scandals. And I was at this point in my life writing clickbait. We had to write those SEO friendly headlines, and it wasn't so much about the quality of the content. So I wanted to find some way to focus on my writing while also, get paid.
Right.
And
it's hard.
Right. And I was thinking again about how to survive as a writer and keep doing what I love to do on my terms. And again, this is where my anxiety is a positive, because I'm constantly trying to figure out ways to survive in this environment of massive digital disruption, where journalists are now, they've become content drones in a way, writing clickbait. And I was scared to become that. And so I decided to write a book. But in my head, I was like, books are something that other people do.
Right.
There's no way this could happen for me. Books are good things that happen to other people. So I hooked up with my friend, Jennifer Armstrong. She wrote a book called Seinfeldia, which was a bestseller, and she specializes in books about pop culture. Mm-hmm. So she had a writing class, a nonfiction writing class that taught you how to write a book proposal. And this is different than fiction, and this, but if you want to write a memoir or a nonfiction book, you've got to basically write a book to show the publisher that this book could sell, to try to woo them on it. And every Sunday for a consecutive 6 weeks, I spent half the day writing different parts of this nonfiction book proposal. So about the author, I wrote my, my little bio and table of contents. Then about the marketplace. So which books did I see that were competitive with mine, and how would mine be different? So you're writing a business prospectus to potential publishers. And it was easier than I thought.
Right.
And then by the
when you were done, were you like, was this all it was? Because that's how I felt.
Yeah. It wasn't nearly, in my anxiety-addled brain, it wasn't nearly as ominous as I envisioned. And I wasn't procrastinating anything for the first time in my life. I was doing it. and it felt good. And then I would give Jen, she was my mentor, I would give her like my about the author section. She would read it, then send it back to me for feedback. At the end of 2 months, I put all of that stuff together into a nonfiction book proposal, sent it out to some agents I had researched. Within 24 hours, I was signed to an agent. 2 weeks later, I was flown out to New York City from Chicago to meet with, I want to say, 7 potential publishers. A week after that, Hachette bought my book. I'll have it having.
Wow. Man, I didn't get to fly anywhere. I'm going to have a talk.
I know, right?
But same. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Wow,
I think that was unusual. I think that was unusual because Jen was like, I didn't fly anywhere when I got my first book deal.
No, you had a good agent. That's awesome.
Yeah, Daniel Greenberg. He doesn't mess around.
That's amazing.
But that was like, so I had this book deal, and it was just incredible for me because for the first time, I wasn't worried about it. I was just doing it.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
It makes total sense.
To your anxious listeners out there, it will make sense. But
yeah, it does make sense because that's the big unknown. I think as a writer, when you are putting your stuff out there and you're like, will anyone like this? Will anyone take it? And then someone does, you're like, wait a minute. Now I just have to do what I know. Now I just have to do the thing I said I would. And I can do that. I do deadlines all the time.
Exactly. There were so many deadlines, and I love deadlines.
Yeah.
Like, as somebody who started out in news, there's something I can, understand. Like, I need that structure. I need to know that, there's a specific date. If there's a specific date where you need something from me, I will send it in to you and you will have it then. And I think that's also why I might have got my second book with Hachette, because I'm pretty reliable.
And that's my thing too. So I got signed to 2 books in 1 year, and I'm like, I'm going to make this so easy for them that they're going to have to buy my 3rd book. I mean, I've been like so agreeable and so timely. I'm like, I'm so easy to work with. And I don't even know if that's true or not, but that's what I tell myself. It's like, oh, if you hit your deadlines and you make it easy, then they'll love you. But then I'm like, am I just people pleasing?
No, I think about this like every day.
Yeah.
Because Hachette's like, could you write the publicity memo for Queen Meryl? And I love my publisher, but I was like, am I supposed to be doing this? But then I also want to do it because I feel like I can tell the best story to potential editors who would potentially accept the book in their magazines. Right. So yeah, but I think that's another thing is that publishers love to work with writers who are easy to work with.
Sure.
So I think that's another, secret to my longevity.
Right. Right. And it's also you bring something to the table. I mean, you know how to write about what you need to write about. And then whether that's yourself or a press release, like you're competent. And I don't want to say that other authors aren't competent, but when you have someone who doesn't have a background and they're just suddenly a writer, it's probably difficult for the publisher. So it's like a breath of fresh air when they have someone like you.
Well, thank you.
Just say thank you, Erin. It's fine.
Thank you.
So your book, I'll Have What She's Having. When was that published? That was what, 2014?
Yeah, it felt like 2014. I feel like it's been out for 20 years. But really, August 29th, 2017.
Okay, so 2 years ago.
I know. I treat my books like children. So I was like, oh, she's going to be 2 in 2 months. So, yeah, but it feels like it's been out longer. And that was a really, really rewarding but hard book to write. How
so?
Because I overwrote it. I did way too many interviews because I'm just overachiever and I just did too much. So that book, the first manuscript, was 550 pages.
Wow.
And I was like, if I'm going to write a book about these overlooked romantic comedies, written and directed by, the most powerful and underrated female director in history, I'm going to do it. And what I mistook, I think, page count.
Right. It's like a thing.
For maybe competence. Right. So Hachette was like, wait a second. No way. Your contract said like 278 pages. You need to go back and cut half this thing. So in winter of 2016, I had just started my editor job. I had to go home every night and cut 250 pages from this first manuscript. And it was difficult.
Yeah.
But when at the end of the day, that's what editors are for. Hachette has great editors, and they helped me shape this kind of bloated book full of extraneous characters and people I interviewed that I felt bad about not including because they gave me like 4 hours of their time.
Right.
Hachette was like, Erin, you don't need to include those people. And they're not part of the narrative. You need to focus on Nora Ephron, Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan, those 3 people. Those are your main characters. So once I figured that out, then I was able to turn in, I think, what I felt is a pretty good book that a lot of people like. And I'm still kind of shocked that people read my books. You know what I mean? Jen and I have a joke about this. I was like, I just got a very nice email from somebody who read my book and loved it. And wow, somebody read my book. She's like, yeah, that can happen, Erin. Right. And I saw my book on Busy Phillips' nightstand on Instagram stories.
Oh, wow.
And she's like the queen of social media. And I was like, my book is on Busy Phillips' nightstand. So, of course, I was like, what would a white man do? They would post that on Instagram. So I posted the screen grab of Busy Phillips' nightstand. No shame. And my friends were like, you should make that your LinkedIn profile.
Right.
But
that's amazing. That's so amazing. I feel that way too every time someone's like, oh, I love your book. I'm like, you read it? The triathlon book. You
Absolutely.
read it?
And tons of people did. Yeah. And it won awards, but you're like, it won an award.
It got an award? Didn't it get a gift certificate with it?
Right. Oh, my God.
And then my husband was so we were in Kansas just recently, living there, and he would go to the bookstore like all around Kansas, and every time he would see the book in the store, he'd take a picture of it and send it to me, and I'm like, oh, that's great. And then apparently he and the kids went to the bookstore over the weekend, and he texted me a picture of a bookstore here in Massachusetts where we moved. The books were in there, and I was like, oh, well, that's great. But it was in my mind, we were still in Kansas, and I'm like, why is he sending me a picture of these 2 books that are still on the shelf? That means they haven't sold any. And he's like, this was in a different state, Mare. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm an idiot. But you get this, like, I still, like, when I see my book in a store, I'm like, well, that's not mine. Like, who thinks that? Like, we've got to be there's something wrong with us.
I know. And this is
my book.
Why I need to read your new book. Like, I seriously cannot wait for it.
I can't wait for it either. This
Chapter 11 and everything else.
You know what's so crazy, though? Because this is another thing we can talk about is how slow the publishing world is. But then when you get going, like this book is out in 5.5 months, and I'm like, that is so close. That is like tomorrow. Where before I got in the publishing world, that was an eternity. But that is like tomorrow.
Oh my gosh. That book is going to be born like tomorrow. And Queen Meryl, September 24th.
That is super soon.
I am going out of the country for the first time in like 4 years.
On pub day?
I'm going to Italy first week of July. Never been to Italy, but I'm afraid something is going to happen with my book.
Stop it.
And then I won't be there to respond. Like,
I will be a proxy. I will be your proxy.
I'm going to forward all emails to you.
Seriously, I would love to. I will handle it. I will be like, Erin here. How can I help you? The best movie was Devil Wears Prada.
Oh my God. So that is actually my chapter 11.
Oh,
The best chapter of my book. Can I say, am I allowed to say that as an author?
I think so. Your favorite chapter?
Yeah.
That's not in the contract that we can't say that.
Well, okay, that's not in the, yeah. So I initially wanted to...
Because you and I have the same contract, I'm pretty sure.
Right. Oh, yeah. I initially wanted to write a book just on the Devil Wears Prada. But my agent was like, oh, it's too soon. So I think people who love Devil Wears Prada will be very pleased to find out that chapter is supersized.
Nice.
It's
such
like
a good movie.
Right? It's like twice as long as the other chapters in the book. But it's a fantastic movie. And what's interesting, too, is that Meryl, of all of the movies, she's done like 60 movies. And I watched them all chronologically during the research phase. Some were not good. Others were fantastic. But there were some duds. Which I do write about. Like, this is a glowing tribute to Meryl, but I am honest as well about, movies that I'm sure she would agree were mistakes. The Devil Wears Prada wasn't one of them. And, of all the movies that she's done, she said that men will come up to her and, say, I love the Devil Wears Prada. I really identify with this character. And it was the first time in her life that a man had come up and said, oh, I just identify with this character, what she's going through, all these decisions that she has to make, leading a company and not being the nicest and just being so committed to the company's success. And Meryl was quite shocked by that a lot of men loved that movie and saw themselves in Miranda Priestley.
Right. Because
they had never seen a lot of people. Can I say this?
Yeah. I don't know what you're going to say, but say it.
Okay. Okay, I'll say it. The Devil Wears Prada is competence porn.
Yes.
It's one of the first times we've seen, and every woman I know is like this. Every woman I know is more competent than her husband, is juggling, work and the kids or domestic life and so on and so on and so on, and just doing it so successfully. And, it's inspiring as hell. And Meryl, what am I trying to say? You can edit this. I'm trying not to offend the men who might be listening.
Oh, that's okay. They're always offended.
But I feel like this was Meryl's tribute to strong women in the workplace.
Yes.
And this is a character that we don't often see, but she's not likable. I don't think that we all aspire to be like Miranda Priestley and insult our colleagues in terrible ways. But there was something about Miranda Priestley that was graceful and real. Like, I know women like this. I know women who work like this. And it is, as Meryl herself has said, as the director of Devil Wears Prada, David Frankel, told me, it's competence porn.
Right. Well, and it's showing the difference in the fact that we will accept that, and not only accept it but expect it from the male bosses in our lives and the successful men. But then when when she's portraying that role, it's somehow shocking.
Yeah. And the decisions that she makes are like, ooh, she's a dragon lady. And criticism that would never, criticism that a man would never get for making the same decisions and showing that same type of leadership that Miranda Priestley, cutthroat editor of Runway, shows in The Devil Wears Prada.
Now, did you talk with Laura Weisberger, the author of the book, or was this strictly the movies? Okay.
No, and I reached out to her for an interview, and I was like, oh, as a fellow author, she'll definitely be interested. And she's still Instagramming about Prada, and it's a big part of her career. But she's
not interested in contributing to the book.
No, she didn't want to. She didn't want to talk about the movie. And
maybe she can.
I think, but I get it.
Yeah,
might be a sensitive issue for her.
Yeah,
too.
Who knows?
Although, I talked to the producers, the directors, the actors. When Lauren, and this is a success story, total success story. Lauren wrote The Devil Wears Prada, or started writing it, in a writing class. I think it was the Gotham Workshop in New York City. And she had quit Vogue to work for Departures. It's a travel magazine. She had worked for Anna Wintour for, I think, 8 months or so. And it wasn't a great 8 months.
Right.
So she quit, the world's best fashion magazine to work somewhere else. And she wanted to be, I think, she wanted to focus on her writing. So she took the writing class, and she started writing The Devil Wears Prada. And then her writing coach was like, oh, this is good. There's something in there. Let me hook you up with an agent and a publisher. And that book sold before she had completed it. Right. She also got the movie rights before she had completed it. Because people were like, oh, this is, a Romana Clef about Anna Wintour in Vogue. There was something tantalizing about that.
Sure.
But what Lauren was doing was trying to write a true story about being a woman in the workplace, working for another powerful woman, and those dynamics that aren't often talked about. And she created that character of Miranda Priestley. Miranda's, withering, that was all Lauren Weisberger. And Aileen Brosh McKenna, who wrote My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, just a really great rom-com. And I think, they filmed their last episode. Yeah, that series is done, but it was so good. She wrote the screenplay. She adapted the book and wrote the screenplay for Prada, which was so funny. But Lauren was invited on the set and was still very much embraced as the creator of Miranda Priestley, probably the most indelible boss in literary history.
Right.
So that's like all you can ask for as a writer. But I understood why she didn't want to talk to me about it, because this is somebody that she created, and she might think that her Miranda Priestley is different than the one Meryl created.
Right. Right.
And nobody wants to offend Meryl.
No. Oh, dear God, no.
Which I learned in the process of interviews for this book.
Yeah. So how did that work? You decided you wanted to write about this. Like, did you interview Meryl, or was it like Julia and Julia, where she would not speak to you? Like, Julia Child at the end?
It was a little bit of both.
Yeah.
So Meryl actually helped me fact check some of the things in the book. So I would send her fact checking questions via her publicist, and then she would respond. So that was very exciting.
Yeah.
And very like, oh
terrifying
my God.
too, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think many, certainly myself, many women my age who perhaps learned of Meryl's genius in their 20s through The Devil Wears Prada might confuse her with the character. So my whole process of researching the book, going back, through her early films, Out of Africa, Sophie's Choice, French Lieutenant's Women, you're able to get an amazing crash course in the scope of Meryl's filmography. Although Devil Wears Prada was a pivotal moment in her career where she was able to break through the glass ceiling. Mm-hmm. And for women of a certain age, she was in her late 50s at the time, when women are sort of like, oh, they become Maggie Smith, right. they're kind of amusing character actors, side characters, but they're not the main event. But Meryl broke boundaries for that. She has always been the main event. And looking at how she's been able to navigate ageism, the turmoil of an industry that, now focuses on blockbusters and superhero franchises and movies that can only do well in China or overseas, and less on the dramas and comedies that focus on characters that she loves to do.
Right.
So how is Meryl able to survive for decades and be an unlikely leading lady? That is so inspiring to me. Writing this was sort of a self-help process too for me. And I'm going off on a tangent.
No, I'm just listening. I'm enthralled. I mean, I feel like, it's like 1 degree of separation from Meryl Streep, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, how did this happen to me? You know what I mean? I'm like, wait a minute. Because I have loved her. My mom, I remember being probably 7. And my mom said, Meryl Streep is the most beautiful woman in the world. She is my favorite actress. And really? I thought, who is she? But I remember my mom saying that. And I'm trying to think. So that would have been like 1987, 86. So was that Sophie's Choice? Like, what was, what movie? Maybe it was Out of Africa. I don't know. But I remember my mom just loving her. And so when I... on the, growing, I bet it was Bridges of Madison County.
Oh my God, I love that movie so much.
I can't watch. That movie is heartbreaking. Oh, I love it. I love that movie.
When he's out, oh my gosh, when he's out in the rain.
No. Stop it.
And then the stoplight, and does she get out? Does she leave her husband?
Get out of the car, Meryl.
Get out of the car. And then he puts the cross on the mirror.
Yeah, no, I can't. Yeah. See, that's one of my favorite. My favorite Meryl movie, that is probably the one that, it's like when my husband's out of town and I want to feel depressed. Like, I'm like, tonight's the Bridges of Madison County followed by The Notebook kind of night,
Yeah.
But also one of her movies that I love is One True Thing.
Oh my God. Oh, I love that movie. And that's
got Renee Zellweger, I think, and then I can never remember the guy, William Hurt. Is that right?
Yeah, William Hurt.
Yeah. Oh, and that's one I feel like didn't get much press, but that's a good one. I always think back to that one, and then of course Julie and Julia. Julie, I never know which one comes first.
Oh yeah, I have a problem with this too. Julie and Julia.
Yeah. Just because that is, to me, that movie shows just the incredible talent. Because you're watching that and you're like, she is Julia Child. Like,
it's like, it's insane.
Yeah.
And she studied for the role by watching Julia on TV. And then she was adamant about being as tall as Julia Child was. Julia Child was 6'2". Meryl Streep was 5'6". So Nora Ephron, who directed the movie, was like, Meryl, I'm sorry. There's no way. There's just no way that we can make you taller. So Meryl was adamant. So, they worked with different camera angles, different, lifts, and did all that they could visually to make Meryl seem taller than she actually is. And it's amazing. She becomes Julia Child.
Yeah, she was a giant. Like, in my mind, if I were to meet Meryl Streep, she would be 6 feet tall because of that movie.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
No, she's average height, but she's larger than life, like Julia. And Nora had told Meryl, you don't have to actually become Julia Child. This is a movie about Julie's idea of Julia Child. So she wasn't saying you're a caricature of this iconic woman, but you are the Julia in Julie's mind. So that gave Meryl a lot of freedom. And she was so happy to be on this movie. She would go to set every day in hysterics, just giggling, because she had to get herself to where Julia Child always was. And Julia was just happy, so happy, and just radiated this joie de vivre and did not take life for granted. And what a lot of people don't know is that she was 51 years old when she went on camera for the first time and, created her groundbreaking cooking show that taught women to enjoy themselves while cooking, that making a meal can be a joyous thing and you can be creative and have fun with it. And she just taught people how to elevate cuisine. And anyway, she did that when she was 51 years old when she first started her cooking show.
Gosh. I feel like a lot of the Meryl Streep movies, they're just so valuable. Like, they're so valuable for women to watch. Like, you take Bridges of Madison County, you get one thing out of there, like sensuality and follow your heart. And do you follow your heart, or is it duty, and then you see Julie and Julia and the character of Julie. I mean, I learned so much from watching that progression. I mean, just her character. And Julia Child started at 51. Like, it's never too late,
Yeah. And Meryl turned 70 on June 22nd. So
that's like next week.
I know.
We should release this on her birthday. I will do that.
I know. I'm like, she's going to be 70. And she was killing. Do you watch Big Little Lies?
No, I don't know that. What is that?
Oh, so Big Little Lies is, do you have HBO?
Maybe. I'm not very TV.
Yeah, you know what? And I wasn't for like a year that I was doing this book, but
and that's my problem. I'm just coming up.
But Big Little Lies is based on the Leanne Moriarty novel about Nicole Kidman's in it, Reese Witherspoon. It is so good. The first couple episodes are like, oh, I don't know if I can get into this. It's so good. And season 2 just came out. Meryl's in it. Meryl plays the creepiest character ever. I won't spoil it for you.
Oh, that sounds great. I need a show.
Admission.
Sure. Awesome. Okay, that's good. See, I need a show.
Yeah. That will be your show, and you're going to love it.
Okay. I wrote it down. And Meryl's birthday, June 22nd.
Oh, and it's a great series to watch. You mentioned your husband is going out of town. My husband is going out of town this week, so I already have things I'm going to watch that I'm really excited about. I was like, yes, okay.
Oh my gosh. So what did you learn? What is the big takeaway from Queen Meryl?
Oh gosh.
Or the top 3 takeaways if it's too hard to pin down.
The top 3 takeaways. What What did I learn from Meryl? Be yourself. Stay true. I know this sounds so generic platitudes, but stay true to yourself, and don't feel pressured to fit into a box. Just when you thought Meryl Out of Africa was probably her most successful movie of the 80s, and people wanted her to keep, making money, keep, taking these romantic epic roles, but she didn't want to pigeon herself ever. So she would pivot and do something kind of crazy like A Cry in the Dark.
Right.
Which nobody saw, but a dingo took my baby. It's based on a true crime story of Lindy Chamberlain. Really good movie. So she would do something like that. And she was always keeping people guessing. Like, you never knew what she would do next. But that was part of her, I think, plan or grand plan to, what am I trying to say? Sorry, I'm like,
oh, it's important.
When you have so many ideas in your head and you try to distill them into one idea? Well, I'll just say she just always wanted to do character roles, but on her terms. So she wanted to be the leading lady, but she wanted to play the kinds of interesting, unique roles for women that you don't often see.
Right. Important ones, social statement. Right. Yeah.
She wanted to keep pushing the boundaries and, thwarting expectations and staying true to herself in the process. So she wasn't the typical leading lady. She could have been, because as your mom said, she, one of the most beautiful women ever on screen and had such a unique, lovely face. And it was fascinating to look at and watch. But she did not want to limit herself in the kinds of roles that she could play and that she was given. And she managed to do that throughout her entire career. So stay true to yourself. And the other takeaway, step outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
So Meryl had done The Devil Wears Prada, and she got the script for Mamma Mia, the movie musical based on the hit Broadway show, based on the music of ABBA, of all bands.
Right.
So crazy, right? Like, what, Meryl's going to wear, put on overalls, fly to Greece, and, try to do a musical? That's insane. She's Meryl Streep. She's a living legend. She doesn't have to do that. No, she didn't have to do that. She thought it would be fun and a challenge. So she was accepting roles that made other people kind of wince. Like, really, Meryl? You're going to do that? Her agent even said that about her taking Mamma Mia. But she wanted to do something outside of her comfort zone, and she had never done a movie musical. She'd always wanted to do she wanted to do Evita, which Madonna took that role. So, she was always kind of pushing herself. So that is inspiring to me right now as I'm considering pivoting to fiction. And
me too.
Yeah, I want to try out a novel. I mean, I have so many stories in my head.
Yeah,
I'm writing about all these fascinating, inspiring women like Nora, Ephron, and Meryl Streep. But you know what? They have inspired me to just get out of my own head of what I'm supposed to do in my life. Like, okay, I write books about successful, inspiring Hollywood leading ladies, but maybe I should take a cue from them and push myself out of my comfort zone and try something new, because I have so many stories in my head.
Right.
And you're considering writing a novel as well?
I am. So I've got like 6 drafts that started of a story, or of a novel. And I keep trying to divert it because it's really dark. so bad. And so I'll start it over and it just keeps turning like really dark. And I'm like, wait, am I like Stephen King? Like what is this? What is this? You know? And so it scares me. And I think it's so bizarre that I'm willing to cut open my heart and lay it on the pages of like Year of No Nonsense. Like, here is me, all of me. I literally leave nothing out, but I don't want to write a story. Like, who does that? Like, I'm terrified to write a story that's not even real. But that's me. That's my next step, because I feel like it's almost worse for people to say, I don't like what you made up and created, than for someone to say, I don't like you. Because I'm well, if you don't like me, I can't do anything about that. But if you don't like what I created, I'm a piece of shit.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
makes no sense.
Yeah. So what's your I don't even know how to begin writing a novel.
So there's a lot of really great courses online about, there's a formula. There's like, what is a plot? And I think that's one of the groups. It's called like, what is a plot? And there is a specific formula to follow for writing a novel. And I am not doing that, because if I do that, then that means I'm committed. You know what I mean? So I'm really dancing around this possibility right now. But there are great workshops and stuff online for how to write a novel. And then I think you just divide it into 3 acts and you go to town, because it's like, there's 3 acts and there's these characters and there's a turning point and there's a formula, and you just figure out. Yeah, there's a formula.
This is so
mind blowing. It's just like the book proposal.
I love it. If there's a formula, if there's a formula for writing a novel and there's a structure,
yep, just like the book proposal. Yeah. Just like the book proposal. And that's what I'm scared of. I'm scared of if I just like plug in, and I actually started outlining my novel, and I got the characters and I got the 3 acts, and I literally just have to kind of sit down. I feel like if I spent 2 weeks on it, it would be done. Like, it's that kind of book. But then I'm like, I don't know if I wanted to, it's just stupid. But I guess because I'm coming off of this nonfiction thing, and I don't know how that's going to do. And if everyone hates that, then I'm not going to like this. And and if I don't show up, then no one can dislike me, and I can just stay small or whatever.
Oh my gosh. No. Everyone is going to love your book. No, I do. I haven't even read it. And I was like, okay, this is going to like help me in so many aspects of my life that I'm still dealing with. And then a novel, like, that's just fun, right?
Yeah.
Because you can deal with so in your second book, you are like, this is me, I'm putting it down on the page. In your novel, you can deal with those themes, but have
the characters.
Have characters, and you can make it a little autobiographical, but have a little more, fun with it. You know what I mean?
Right. We should start a club, me and you, and we should like set deadlines, and we should.
Oh my gosh, that means I would have to be committed and accountable for writing a novel.
That's right, me too. We set deadlines. We should create a club. We should see what listeners want to also write their novel, and we should create a club. Actually, not a group, a club, because that sounds so much cooler.
We should. It would be like the what would we call the club?
The old spinster fiction writer club, even though none of us are spinsters.
Oh my gosh, let's do it. I have like 3 ideas too for my novel. How did you choose one idea?
Well, I keep coming back to it. It's like it's chosen me.
Oh.
I've been turning this story over in my head for 20 years. It's one of those. So it has to get written or it's going to kill me.
Yeah.
It's one of those. And so maybe I just need to go on a week-long vacation, because that's how Year of No Nonsense started. I went to the mountains for a weekend, and I was like, I have to get away and start this book, or I'm never going to start this book. And so I went away for a weekend and started the book, and then I sat and stared at it for 6 months and did nothing. But then it was there for when I was ready. And so I feel like I have to take that step.
Yeah.
I keep toying with it. I've got like maybe 20,000 words written.
That's amazing.
Of nonsense, though. It's just like blah, 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 blah. And then a novel's like only 65,000 words, and I'm already over my word count if you really look at it that way. And then that scares me.
Oh my gosh, I'm always over my word count. That's what editors are for.
My poor editor.
Editor. You finish this, it's going to be like on Netflix in 2 years.
I need you to just be my friend. I'm just going to start texting you, hey, Erin, I'm having a bad day. And you're like, you're going to be on Netflix. You have the best uplifting comments.
Well, I mean, like.
But it's diversionary because you're trying to turn it away from yourself.
No. No, I'm like, but I'm like manifesting this for you.
Oh, thanks. I'll take it. And I'm going to manifest your bestseller, Queen Meryl.
I hope so.
And then you get to have like a party with her and invite me as your +1 because your husband will be out of town.
I know, right? What if I get an email from, this would be terrifying, an email from Meryl on publication date?
You should.
What if the email said,
oh,
florals for spring, groundbreaking, or like one of Miranda Priestley's comic insults.
Right. It's not going to happen. Why would you put that out into the universe?
I know. I'm going to rescind that.
First of all, she fact-checked your book. She's not going to hate it.
That's true.
And I'm sure she's already seen it.
I hope so, because I left out a lot of things.
Right.
Right. And someday I feel like my inspiration for this book was the Notorious RBG.
Uh-huh.
And a friend of mine wrote this amazing book about Bill Murray, The Tale of Bill Murray, which kind of collected people's Bill Murray sightings, because he's been known to drop in like at your karaoke session,
right.
weddings. So I wanted to write that kind of book, but for Meryl. And I think I succeeded. It was so much fun to write. It truly was. And yeah. And I love it. I can say that. I love my book. I love her. And I want her to like it.
Right.
If she doesn't, that's fine. It would be super weird if I were Meryl and I were, here in this world and somebody were writing a book about me. That'd be kind of weird, but she was cool about it.
But she's not going to Julia you.
No.
That's too predictable.
Right. That's
you know what I mean?
That's too predictable. And Meryl also understands the whole celebrity industrial complex. She knows that my book is not a mean-spirited tell-all.
Right.
And I have heard things, but, that goes in the vault. This is a celebration of her. There are some warts in there. I want to present a rich picture of who she is, but it's a tribute to her. I want to say, a tribute to her legacy and what she represents to women. And that's a survivor, an artist, and somebody who is free and comfortable in her own skin while playing many, many, many different women.
Yeah.
Yeah,
amazing.
You mentioned One True Thing, which she plays a housewife dying from cancer, and it is the saddest movie ever, I think, of all of Meryl's movies.
Yeah.
But she was feminist, or is a feminist, no question, because she chooses roles that showcase women who aren't seen as much on film. So she's paying tribute to, a woman who is a housewife, sort of like the Bridges of Madison County,
mm-hmm.
and giving her an inner world and depth and turning her struggle into, as I said before, the main event.
Right.
So it's
the relationship of the mother-daughter in that movie was so powerful.
Oh, yeah.
That's what was just, because it's been a long time since I've seen it, but if I remember correctly, the daughter's like somewhat successful and resents her mother for being the housewife and for not being strong enough and vocal enough. And it just all turns out to be a lot different than the daughter thought.
Yeah. And like the daughter's finally like, oh, well, she idolized her father for so long, the professor who kind of the narcissistic professor, and she didn't appreciate all that her mother did and the sacrifices that her mother made for her children.
Right.
So this sort of, pivots on the mother and is a love letter to women like that, from, women. What do I want to say?
I think it was like a love letter to the different roles of women and how in the very end, like, it's all the same. It's all about love and passion and humanity. And then we all die.
Yeah.
Because toward the end, the mother-daughter, although they were totally different, they mirrored each other in spirit and in drive. And that's what I got out of the movie, that it was just the connection of women. Like the circle, yeah.
Yeah. And how some of the women, like we look at Meryl's character and she has more strength and more grit and ambition that is unseen, and ambition to keep her family together. And maybe that's not the role that Renee Zellweger wants, because she, like me, is a workaholic whose work defines her. But but she comes to appreciate the sacrifices that her mother made, and that her mother had a full, rich life too. And that, she had a valuable life. It was a different life, but it was the role that was expected for her. And for people who haven't seen this movie, go see this movie.
Yeah, I know. They're like, what? Because it is a while ago. I mean, this is probably 15 years ago at least. But yeah, it's so good. So good.
Yeah.
Well, Erin, I wish you the best of luck with the book and the fiction. And I'm sure we will talk soon. But before we go, I got to ask you the question I ask everyone on the podcast. So this podcast is called The Same 24 Hours, meaning we all have the same 24 hours in our day. But what we do in those 24 hours is what contributes to our greatest health, happiness, and success. So I like to ask my guest, what is something that you do on a daily basis that you think kind of gives you the biggest reward, the biggest dividends? What is one thing that you do that contributes to your health, happiness, and success?
Laugh. I laugh all day long.
That's good.
You cannot... Life is serious enough. You cannot take life seriously. And once you realize that, then you can actually live your life and make things happen and enjoy your life. Because like you said, we're all going to die someday.
Right. Right.
And I think about that a lot just because of my dark Irish humor. But, I just laugh all day long. And my laughter and humor is my greatest gift, and how I connect with other people and how I survive in this crazy world.
I love it. Well, you're definitely funny, and I'm glad to laugh with you anytime, Erin.
Yes, and let's all start the novel club, everybody.
Right, the Spinster Novel Club.
I'm in. Let's all keep ourselves accountable, and then within a year, we can all have novels.
I know.
They will all go to Netflix. And
that'd be amazing.
Yes, I'm manifesting that for all of us.
That's right. All right, lady. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Bye-bye.